Tonight we're going to learn more about bioidentical hormones. And I call the talk Bioidentical Hormones from A to Z. And really, when we talk about hormone issues, we're talking about what makes you healthy. And if you don't have healthy hormones, you won't have your overall health. It's one of the pillars of good health for women and for men. Sometimes we think of hormones as being a female thing. And certainly women have hormones, and maybe in some people's view, they can be slightly more complex than men. But men have hormones too, and they have hormonal changes. So we're going to talk tonight about how hormonal changes present, how we can diagnose them, what you can begin to do tonight to improve your hormone balance. I also call this presentation 8 Steps to Hormonal Health. Because when we talk about balancing hormones or establishing hormonal balance, getting things the way we'd like them to be, it really is a process. And it's more than just one thing. Some people say, well, I just want the magic hormone pill or that magic hormone cream. And that can be part of that replacement process. But it really is a step process. And we're going to talk about those 8 steps. This is a quote, one of my favorite quotes from Arthur Schopenhauer. I think it really epitomizes where medicine is today. Is truth goes through 3 phases. First, truth is ridiculed. Second is vehemently opposed. And third is accepted as self-evident. And I really live in this world, vehemently opposed. Now, most truth, almost all truth, goes through these 3 phases at one time or another. And it was a time that in this world, not that many years ago, a few hundred years ago, when the most learned scholars believed that the world was flat. That was what we were taught. Now, there are still people that believe the world is flat. There's a flat world society out there. Maybe some of you do too, and I'm not here to discuss that. But, those people who felt that the world was round were ridiculed and opposed. But now most of us accept the fact that the world is round. Truth evolves. And it's no different in geography or in medicine. So these are the 8 steps. We're going to talk about how we balance your hormones with bioidentical hormones, detoxification, nutrition, healing your gut, maybe looking at pharmaceuticals, supplementing your diet appropriately, getting some exercise, and getting some sleep. All these things are the 8 critical components if you really want to take charge of your hormone health. So let's start with step 1, balance your hormones. I always like to start with the basics to help increase your understanding of all the words we're talking about. And the first definition is, what is a hormone? Because people don't always know what a hormone is. And it's one of those medical words that people don't always understand. Well, a hormone is very simple. It's a messenger. And it has a very specific message produced by a gland, and it's going to communicate a message to either another gland or a cell in the body. And we have all kinds of hormones: thyroid hormone, sex hormones, and one big hormone called insulin. Yes, insulin is a hormone. Insulin is a hormone that controls our blood sugar. And all hormones have 3 basic constituents. They start out with a cholesterol molecule. We add some protein and amino acids, and we can change the ring. Now, this is a cholesterol ring, a molecular demonstration of cholesterol. People sometimes are surprised because they think of cholesterol as being such a bad thing. We hear a lot about cholesterol and heart disease, and the fact that people take statin drugs to lower their cholesterol. Well, you need cholesterol to make healthy cells, to make healthy cell membranes. And without cholesterol, you don't have the fundamental building block to begin the process. You actually can have your cholesterol be too low. And we see this a lot in people that are on some of the lipid-lowering drugs, is that their cholesterol levels actually will drop too low. They don't have enough of that raw material to manufacture healthy hormones. The central nervous system is comprised of endocrine glands. Endocrine means it produces a hormone. And we have two major glands in our brain. One's called the hypothalamus and one is called the pituitary. And they are located in the midbrain and the forebrain. The hypothalamus is a walnut-sized gland. It sits right here in the midbrain. The master gland, and it controls some of the basic instincts: thirst, hunger, sex drive. And then we have the pituitary. The pituitary really sits right between your eyes. If you went straight back from your nose, you would find your pituitary gland. It's about the size of a pea. And it's a liaison between the hypothalamus and other endocrine glands, like the thyroid gland, or in this demonstration, the female sex glands, the ovaries and the uterus. We're going to start talking about minor and major hormones. There's a lot of minor hormones: estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and all the ones listed on this slide. People say, well, my gosh, Dr. Wycoff, I thought that's what you're going to talk about. Estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, those were the big deal. And they're important. But in the realm of importance, they really are the lesser important hormones. They're important. Now, estrogen, a lot of times people say, well, I'm on estrogen replacement. Well, estrogen is kind of a nondescript term. It's really, there are three specific types of estrogen that make up that term estrogen. We have estrone, estradiol, and estriol. And sometimes these they're given by an abbreviation, where estrone would be called E1. Estradiol, diol means 2, is E2, and estriol, tri means 3. So the third estrogen. These all are present in men and women. Women tend to have more estrogens, and they make different types of estrogens at different parts of their typical female hormonal life. They each have a somewhat different role. Progesterone, testosterone. Testosterone is primarily a male hormone, but women produce and need testosterone also. We've got Pregnenolone, DHEA, and Melatonin. We'll talk about all of these in a little more detail tonight. We're going to subdivide those minor hormones into the sex hormones. Those include estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Estrogen being estrone, estradiol, estriol. I'll use estrogen as kind of a generic term, but really what I'm talking about are those three specific types of estrogen. These are the sex hormones because they're made by the sex glands. In women, that primary production point is the ovary. In the men, it's the testes. Now, you might get a little production of these sex hormones from your adrenal glands, but most of them produced by the sex organs, the ovary or the testicles. So estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, the sex hormones. Let's talk about each of them. Estrogen. Remember, estrogen means those three types of estrogen: estrone, estradiol, estriol. Primarily a female hormone, but men have and make estrogen too. And it stimulates cells all through the body: the brain, the liver, the bone, the uterus, the urinary tract, the breast, blood vessels. So oftentimes I see women who have had a hysterectomy. Hysterectomy means they've had their uterus removed. And oftentimes the ovaries are removed with them. Not always. You can have a hysterectomy with an ovarian removal. It's called an oophorectomy, or without. But they have it done because they have uterine fibroids, endometriosis, some gynecologic issue. And once the uterus is out and the ovaries are out, the doctor says, well, it's going to be fine. Well, what about the effect that that organ, production of the hormone estrogen, had on all of these other areas? Because when you don't have that hormone stimulation, these start to age. They age prematurely. So you see changes in the brain. What changes do you see? Memory loss, confusion, brain fog, dementia. You see changes in the liver. You don't detoxify as well. You see things in the bones. We call it osteoporosis, osteopenia. We see changes in the skin. We call them wrinkles. The estrogen does affect the uterus. It affects the urinary tract. When women don't have enough estrogen, we call it incontinence. They leak. They can't control their bladder. Blood vessels, we call it heart disease. Breast, we call it cancer. So estrogen does things for women. It helps control hot flashes. It decreases the bone's loss of minerals, because that's why we get osteoporosis or osteopenia. Have you heard those terms, osteopenia, osteoporosis? Well, penia means loss of, osteoporosis means it's gone. So you get osteopenia, you're losing bone mass. Osteoporosis, you've lost the bone mass. The minerals that make up strong bones, your bones are comprised of 14 or more minerals, much more than just calcium. But your bones are primarily made of minerals. And if those minerals move out of the bone loses its strength. That's osteopenia and osteoporosis. Estrogen reduces that. It prevents atrophy or shrinking of the vaginal lining. There's many women who are postmenopausal, not on hormone replacement, they have dryness in the vaginal area. And that causes pain with intercourse. It causes problems with bladder control. And it promotes collagen production and healthy skin. Collagen is what makes your skin elastic. And you've seen this in all of your parents and grandparents, how their skin changed as they got older. Wrinkles got deeper, skin got thinner. Much of that's due to a decline or a change in hormone balance. The second hormone that we think of with women is progesterone. Progesterone is actually derived from promote gestation. It is the hormone of pregnancy. Gestation in Latin means to get pregnant. So P-R-O, promotes pregnancy. It is the pregnancy hormone. And this is why a lot of women will come in and they'll say, you know, one of the times in my life when I felt the best was after I got through morning sickness. The last 6 months of my pregnancy, I just felt good. My anxiety went down. I was more relaxed. And that's always a clue that they really enjoyed that high state of progesterone production which the fetus gave to them from the placenta. You make 300 to 400% more progesterone during those last 6 months of the pregnancy than you ever do at any other part of your life. It's designed to help promote fetal growth, but many women find, and they think about this, you know, I really felt good for that latter half of my pregnancy. Now, you still may have had backache and you're not sleeping well, but other things would go away. And oftentimes those are progesterone related. But progesterone does other things too. It supports your adrenal glands. Your adrenal glands are your stress glands. We'll talk more about those. It enhances myelin formation. Myelin is what covers your nerves in your spinal cord. And if you lose some of that myelin, you get something called multiple sclerosis. And we actually see more and more progesterone being used for in brain injury because it does tend to support that healthy functioning brain. So we think it also has a role in dementia and brain function. It promotes pregnancy, that's by virtue of its name, and reduces blood pressure. So what happens to many women after menopause? Their blood pressure goes up. Now, there may be a myriad of reasons as to why that happens. This may just be one. Pregnenolone, something called the memory hormone, it actually is a precursor, meaning it is produced by the body between that cholesterol phase and the progesterone phase. It's made by the adrenal glands, the ovaries, and the testicles, and it converts into another hormone called DHEA. It's kind of a transient hormone. Testosterone, we think of testosterone as being the male hormone, and primarily it is. Men produce several times more of testosterone, but women need testosterone too, because it has a lot to do with sex drive, libido. It may not be the only determinant of libido, a little bit more so in men than in women. So oftentimes we get men, as they get into their late 30s, 40s, 50s, not having a sex drive. I have a friend who, nice lady, she's in her mid-50s, and she, in quite confidence, she's a single young lady. She says, you know, I really find it frustrating dating men my age because, you know, I still have a sex drive. But she goes, they don't. They just don't have a libido anymore. And that's really sad. Improves the tone of the vagina and the bladder, so that helps with that urinary continence. Probably a little more so in women than men. Increases muscle tone and strength. And we see this a lot in guys, but in girls too. They find as they get older, they go to the gym, they're working out, they're just not toning. They're not building that muscle mass. If you don't have adequate testosterone, it's very challenging to do so. It stimulates osteoblastic activity in bones. Osteoblasts are what make new healthy bone. So just like estrogen reduced demineralization, taking minerals out of the bone, testosterone helps actually stimulate some bone healing, some bone growth. It enhances initiative and assertiveness and your cognitive ability, helps your brain work better. So the typical story that I'll hear, I'll have a 48-year-old male that comes in to see me with depressed mood. His wife says, you're depressed. You have depressed moods. And I talk with him, and he says, over the last 10 years, I've gained weight around my middle. I've struggled with fatigue. I just can't do those mental problems like I used to be able to in my brain. I used to be able to do arithmetic and mathematics, and I can't do it anymore. I don't know what's wrong. Or they say, listen, I'm getting passed up for job promotions because the younger guys are quicker, think clearer. Oftentimes that's all driven by testosterone in men. But in women too, same effects. DHEA is actually the acronym for dehydroepiandrosterone. That is a mouthful. So we're going to call it DHEA, the mother hormone. DHEA in women actually increases testosterone, protects against arteriosclerosis, that's hardening of the arteries, stimulates the immune system, reduces cancer risk, reduces the risk of Parkinson's disease and dementia. The DHEA is very simple to measure. It's a simple blood test. Costs a few bucks. Can be replaced actually with over-the-counter replacement. Pennies a day. It is made by the adrenal gland, the adrenal cortex, and oftentimes gets depleted if you've had a lot of stressors in your life. And we're going to talk about adrenal stress in just a little bit, but kind of park that away, DHEA and the adrenal gland. Melatonin, the sleep hormone, produced by a gland called the pineal gland. Levels begin to decrease in men and women, usually in their 40s, late 40s and 50s. So how many of you have trouble sleeping? Yeah. After, when people come to see me, the number one symptom they have is they're tired. They're fatigued. And the next question I ask is, well, how are you sleeping? I say, most of them say, I just can't sleep like I could 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I'm working hard, I've got a job, I've got kids, maybe I'm going to the gym, but and I'm tired at night, I just can't get a good night's sleep, or I'm frequently awakening. Oftentimes they have a decrease in melatonin, the sleep hormone. Now, but it also does things, it's an antioxidant, it relaxes your muscles, it reduces tension, it reduces stress and anxiety, and again, lowers blood pressure. So all of you go to the doctor, or you should be going to the doctor periodically. You go going with a physical, what do? They check your blood pressure. The doctor says, well, you're getting older, blood pressure's going up. Better get on a blood pressure pill. You might need a pill. Maybe that's what you do need. But suddenly do they ask, well, what is your hormone balance? You're 58. You're male or female, and you've got declining hormones. These things are somewhat cumulative in their effect on you. What about testing for hormones? Well, we can test a lot of ways. We can do blood testing, and this is oftentimes what conventional doctors will order. They'll order blood tests. They'll do some blood hormones. Most doctors, one, don't order the right tests. Two, don't know how to interpret the tests, because they are somewhat difficult to interpret, especially in women that are premenopausal. They haven't stopped menstruating. The hormones fluctuate so much day to day during the cycle that blood testing can be very challenging to interpret. You can do it, but it's hard. You can do urine testing. Urine testing is actually quite accurate, but it's a little bit of a pain to collect. You actually have to collect that urine for a 24-hour period of time. So, you know, for guys, we have them urinate into a container. For gals, we have a little insert for the toilet, but it's kind of a pain. I like saliva testing because it looks at what goes on inside of your hormones. It's the only test that really looks at adrenal function plus your sex hormone function. So this is a saliva kit from a company we use called ZRT. We think they're really one of the pioneers and leaders in the country. Dr. Zava is a friend of mine. Easy to collect. We show you how. You take a little kit home, and depending on what we're collecting, you collect a little tube of saliva. That one's a morning tube. You don't have to fill this up, but you kind of spit into this little tube, put the cap on it, put your name on it, and you send it off by UPS or FedEx, and comes back with a nice report. Well, some of you are on bioidentical hormones, and many of you said that you had heard the term or understood the term. Well, what are they? Bioidentical hormones are, by and large, prescription medications. Most of them now are manufactured from the Mexican wild yam, the plant. The molecular formula of the hormones, whether it's an estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, is identical to human hormones, thereby the term bioidentical. At a molecular level, a biological level, these hormones mimic or are identical to your hormones. Since they're plant-based, they're natural, they are not able to get a patent. And if you can't put a patent on it, no pharmaceutical company will bring it to market because they can't control it. They're not going to invest the dollars that it takes to go through the research and the development to get their product FDA approved if they can't control it for a period of time and make a profit. That's the way the pharmaceutical industry works. It's not a marketing term, it's a descriptive term only. Describes the biological, identical molecular formula borne by bioidentical hormones. And you can get these that are commercially available. They've gone usually into some form like a patch. Vival, Estroderm, and really what they're going to patent is they patent the delivery system, the patch. The downside to the commercially available bioidentical hormones is that they come in very limited doses, and the delivery method is fairly fixed. It's a cream, it's a pill. With compounded bioidentical hormones, we can individualize your replacement based on your symptoms, your test, or the result we're trying to get. We can customize that. So let's say that a prescription product comes in a 1 milligram and a 5 milligram strength, just for sake of discussion. I mean, what do you do if you need 3.25 milligrams? That's the dose you need. How do you get there? You can't. You could take 1 milligrams. You could take a 5 milligram tablet and try to cut it up a little bit and get 3.25, but it's pretty hard. Not practical by and large. We can compound, though, for you a 3.25 milligram dose of whatever hormone you wanted. It's very, very simple. Bioidentical hormones are synthesized to be identical to human hormones. All but estriol are FDA approved. Estriol is in a battle with the pharmaceutical company Wyeth, and I don't know where that's all going to end up. But they've not given their approval to estriol. Estriol is the safest and the least problematic of all three female hormones. It's kind of a strange deal. And Wyeth was able to get a patent on estriol in Germany and is vigorously marketing that drug in Germany. But they cannot get the patent in the United States, so they won't bring that product to market here. That's really sad. So estrone, estradiol, progesterone, testosterone, thyroid hormones, cortisol, DHEA are all FDA-approved bioidentical types of hormones. And really it comes down to, do you want to put something in your body that's natural or synthetic? That's really what it's coming down to. It's like putting a key into a lock. If you've got the new lock and a new key, the key slides in real easily and unlocks the door. that would be a bioidentical match. Now, a synthetic hormone may be like a key you had to have remade. It fits, and if you wiggle it just the right way, maybe it unlocks the door. Maybe it doesn't. It's certainly more difficult, and that's really the difference. Some of the pros and the cons, natural versus synthetic, bioidentical versus, we call them the counterfeit hormones. Natural or biologically identical versus chemically made tend to have fewer side effects. Some of the synthetic hormone side effects are life-threatening. We'll talk about those. Natural hormone replacement tends to be fairly inexpensive. You can individualize the dose, and we have delivery options multiple ways. We can do a under-the-tongue drop or a troche, a little lozenge that goes inside your mouth and dissolves. We can do a cream. We can do capsules, even some tablets. With synthetic hormones, you usually are tied down to one delivery method. It comes in a patch, it comes in a pill. And that's what you got. You got one drug A comes in a patch, drug B only available in a capsule. All right, we're going to move on to the major hormones. We talked about the minor hormones, estrogen, progesterone. Now we're going to talk about the major hormones. Dr. Terry Hertog, one of my trainers, said we are the age of our oldest organ. We are as strong as our weakest link. So all your hormones need to be kept in check. Because you could have, let's say you've got 8 hormones you're worried about, and you could have 7 of them be really good. But if the 8th one is worthless, well, guess what? You're pretty much worthless. It's going to break. That's where the chain will break, the weakest link. So we need all of the links to be strong. So our 3 major hormones, thyroid hormones, cortisol, and insulin. Let's talk about them. The thyroid hormone. The thyroid is a gland in your neck. It is your thermostat. It governs your metabolism. It enables cells to produce energy and make energy. So when people come in, and remember their number one symptom was they are tired. Got to at least be thinking about their thyroid hormone. And actually, I do a 2-hour talk just on low thyroid disorders. So we're going to just touch on that tonight. But if you see that talk, you may want to come back because we'll go into more detail about how and why the thyroid does what it does. It governs growth and development, promotes growth hormone secretion. So it is an important hormone. Symptoms if you have hypo. Hypo in Latin, H-Y-P-O, means low. So if you have low thyroid, you can have high thyroid too. That would be called hyper. We're going to talk more about hypo tonight. Here's the symptoms. Number 1, fatigue. Number 2, weight gain. 3, cold extremities, cold hands and feet, and do not like the cold weather. So almost everyone in Michigan shouldn't be here. Brain fog. Your brain's not working right. Depression or mood swings. Hair loss, constipation, fluid retention, headaches. Muscle pain, sometimes we call that fibromyalgia and joint pain. Those are common symptoms of low thyroid. A lot of causes of low thyroid. Most common, we see something called an autoimmune disease where your body makes an antibody. Hashimoto's is the actual term. Dr. Hashimoto was a Japanese doctor who coined the term autoimmune thyroid disease, and it bears his name. Radiation, having your thyroid surgically removed. Many medications affect thyroid function. Pregnancy can. Not having enough minerals that support the thyroid gland like iodine, selenium, zinc. Vitamin D I should have on there too, probably the 4 big ones. If you get a pituitary problem. And what tends to happen in women is we get this darn female hormone imbalance. Progesterone deficiency, estrogen dominance. Too much estrogen, too little progesterone. Or a relative imbalance of the two. So you can have completely normal thyroid blood tests because I know you've gone to the doctor and you said, listen, doctor, I've got all these symptoms. The doctor's real excited. Said, oh my gosh, you must have low thyroid. Let's do a test. And he does a TSH. We'll talk more about that. Or maybe he does some other tests, but the tests come back in the normal range. So you're thinking, well, I finally found a doctor who figured this out. I got low thyroid. Because I got all these symptoms. And I said, oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Jones. Thyroid tests are normal. That's not what you have. Well, doctor, why do I feel this way? Well, I think you're probably depressed, and you probably need an antidepressant. All right? Or you're made to feel like it's in your head. We evaluate all of our patients with the physical. There are certain changes of hypothyroidism that all of you can determine or try to look at. Number one, you can look at your eyebrows. This person has nice regular eyebrows. They're symmetric. They're the same thickness here as here. No thyroid problems. I couldn't find a good slide. If the outer third of your eyebrows are very thin compared to the inner third, that's a subtle sign of hypothyroidism. So now all of you can look at your neighbor and see, Now for you young ladies who plucked your eyebrows, it doesn't count. But for men and women, your eyebrows should be symmetric like this. So if they're thin out here, thick inside, that can be a sign of low thyroid. You can look at the tongue, and there'll be indentations of the teeth along the side of the tongue. You can stick your tongue out and look in a mirror, and you can see these little scalloping where the tongue actually is pushed out against the teeth. If you don't get enough thyroid hormone in pregnancy, or none at all, you develop a condition called cretinism. If you've ever seen a child with cretinism, one of their most poignant features is their tongue actually comes out of their mouth. It enlarges. Well, a lesser degree of that tongue enlarging and pushing into the teeth causes denting, ridges. The skin, typically, skin will be very dry. And for you young ladies, I know you all love lotions. And we always ask our patients not to put lotions on the day that they come for their in-person appointment, because we want to see what that skin feels like, dry skin. Hair. Oftentimes the hair is thin, very coarse. If you're hyper, it tends to be thicker and oilier, just the opposite. If any of you have ever had carpal tunnel syndrome, that's the numbness in the hands with the impingement of the carpal nerve in the wrist, should always be checked for low thyroid. Oftentimes, the thyroid condition is causing the carpal tunnel problems. Not always, but it's associated. And a very simple test that you can do tonight or tomorrow morning is you can take your basal body temperature. Because remember, I told you your thyroid hormone controls your thermostat. So if your thermostat is low, what do you think the temperature of your house is going to be? It's going to be lower, right? Now you may want it. You may, tonight it's going to get cool. It's going to get down in the 50s. Maybe you like your house at 68 degrees. Well, yesterday you had the air conditioner on. Tonight you got to put the furnace on. And that's what the thyroid's doing. Just like you dialed that thermostat up or down, your thermostat works. But if your thermostat is always stuck at 62 degrees, how does the house ever get up to 68 or 72? It can't. If it won't adjust and is stuck at 62, that's where it's going to stay. So, typical temperature in the morning, 98 degrees. Take it under your tongue. Take it for a couple weeks. Should be within 0.2 of a degree most of those days, between 97.8 and 98.2. One of the things that we have my patients do is we have them chart their temperature for several weeks and bring that temperature in. It's a subtle sign of low thyroid function. Now, what about the test? We talked about the TSH test, the thyroid stimulating hormone. I'm going to shock all of you today and tell you has nothing to do with the thyroid. It has everything to do with the pituitary gland. It has zero to do with the thyroid. It's not a thyroid hormone. These other tests are T4, T3, reverse T3, and thyroid antibodies. Those have direct meaning to the thyroid. So if you're going to go in and have your thyroid evaluated, I say, doctor, I would like all of these tests done. And you've all had those requisition forms with all those little boxes. All these things are on there. Just ask your doctor to check them. So just like we have natural or synthetic female or male sex hormones, we have natural synthetic thyroid hormone. The natural version is called Armour. It's biologically identical to human thyroid. It's a combination of the T3 and T4 thyroid hormone. Now, we're not going to go into detail. This is part of the long thyroid talk I mentioned. But your thyroid gland makes two thyroid hormones, T3 and T4. 80% T4, 20% T3. Very different hormones. T3, much stronger than T4, 5 to 6 times stronger. But Synthroid, the synthetic version, has 100% T4. Right away, your question should be, well, that doesn't seem quite right. Why would I, there must be a reason that my thyroid gland made T3, and there was. It works better. You feel better. But here again, you can't get a patent for that natural hormone. You can synthesize a synthetic T4, and you can call it Synthroid. Or the generic form now, Synthroid has been around forever, Levothyroid, Levoxin. Synthroid has been recalled by the FDA. Armour never has. Armour is derived from the pig thyroid. Now, it's a little different than your sex hormones. It doesn't come from a plant. It's taken out of the slaughterhouses. They take the pig's thyroids during the slaughter operation and desiccate and remove the thyroid hormone and resynthesize it into a pill. Why pig thyroid is identical to human thyroid, I don't know. Maybe we are all pigs. I don't know. But at a biological level, it is. Unless you have a marked porcine or pig allergy, Armour Thyroid works better. I would say that I do have patients on Synthroid. I do get some patients who do not like how they feel on Armour Thyroid. But if we were to take a group of 10 people who are on Synthroid, 9 of them would feel better on Armour than Synthroid. 1 or 2 might be the difference. So 80 to 90% of the time, most men and women feel better on Armour Thyroid versus Synthroid. So if we have someone who has a thyroid issue, we're going to replace him with bioidentical Armour Thyroid. We're usually starting with a low dose, 15 to 30 milligrams. Armour is measured in milligrams. Synthroid and your synthetic thyroids are measured in micrograms. So you'll see the difference. It's not an apple-to-apple conversion. And we're going to replace to a normal physiologic level, an optimal level. Now, we talked about zinc, selenium, iodine, vitamin D, maybe progesterone, or help that thyroid hormone activate and function normally. Let's shift gears and talk about the adrenal glands, the stress glands. How many of you have no stress in your lives? Okay. We all face stress, and sometimes that stress gets compounded with a death of a family member, a tragic accident where you're hospitalized, an injury. Those are all, major stresses. It could be stress, day-to-day stress. You have a child with special needs. You have parents that are aging. You have a boss who's a jerk. Stress comes in many forms. It can be a physical stress, it can be an emotional stress. Oftentimes people with adrenal issues, they do not sleep well. They oftentimes are not getting the nutrients to support their adrenal glands. So you have vitamin and mineral deficiencies. So adrenal fatigue is another chronic health issue that needs to be looked at if you have troubles with fatigue, if you have troubles with sleep, if you've had a lot of physical or emotional stressors in your life. How do we diagnose this and treat it? Well, the only test that we can do of any validity is to do a 4-vial saliva collection. We collect your saliva at 4 points during the day, morning, noon, late afternoon, bedtime. And there's a normal rhythm called the circadian rhythm of cortisol levels. We have to look at, what are driving the stresses. Sometimes some of those stresses you can control. Sometimes you can't. Your spouse died in an auto accident. Not going to make that better. It's going to hurt. Now, maybe we can help with counseling. We can help reduce other stresses. Maybe it's the fact that your job is just not a good job. Maybe we got to put together a plan that says, listen, I need to change my career focus. I'm not happy in this field. Not easy choices. If we're going to replace hormones, DHEA or cortisol, we're going to use bioidentical hormones. We're going to look at the right mineral supplementation, right vitamins, multivitamin, vitamin D. omega-3 fish oil, maybe some modest exercise, the right diet. All these things will help support adrenal gland health, adrenal improvement. Now, adrenal fatigue is not a quick fix. With the sex hormones, oftentimes putting you on a hormone replacement cream in a matter of a few weeks will result in marked improvement of your symptoms. Hot flashes go away. Sleep normalizes. Adrenal issues are slower. It can take upwards of a couple years to rebuild really stressed out adrenal glands. But you'll get there if you have the right person to guide you through that quagmire. So cortisol is one of those adrenal hormones, a stress hormone. It wakes you up and puts you to sleep. Too much is a problem, too little is a problem. So how do you know? You have to measure it, because the treatment for too much cortisol is very different than too little cortisol. If you have too little, you want to give some more. If you have too much, you want to begin to bring it down a little bit. And then that third major hormone is insulin, the most important hormone of all, produced by the pancreas gland. Again, too much insulin is a problem. Too little is a problem. And too little, we call that juvenile onset diabetes, an autoimmune disease where your pancreas gland is attacked by your own body, and the pancreas that makes insulin, the islets of Langerhans, stop producing insulin. You got to take insulin, control your blood sugar. Insulin, though, protects against osteoporosis, heart disease, and dementia. So if you have too much insulin, this is what we see in the majority of adults. Number one health issue, United States today, elevated insulin. No one wants to talk about it. We want to talk about glitzy things like breast cancer, dementia, Parkinson's disease. Those are not good things. No one talks about this. This is what's driving disease in this country. It's elevated insulin. This is what you see. High blood pressure, high cholesterol, triglycerides, getting sick all the time because your immune system doesn't work right. For women, irregular menstrual cycles, swollen ankles, craved sugars, retained water, hormone problems, acne. Yes, acne is a sign of too much insulin. Fatigue, brain fog, depression, irritability, aging, obesity, insomnia. There are ways to support healthy hormones. These are some supplements, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about these, but suffice it to say there are things you can do to help balance hormones for men and women. All right, we're going to move on to step 2, enhanced detoxification. Here again, this could be an entire 2+ hour seminar on detoxification. So we're going to talk briefly about detoxification. What are the 2 things physicians never learn in medical school? Number 1, the role of nutrition and food in health and disease. I wasn't taught it. Most of your doctors were not taught it either. The role of toxins and the importance of detoxification in health and disease. I never heard what a toxin was when I was in medical school. And detoxification, man, that was a term that was foreign to me. But these are both health issues that your doctors are not going to know much about. You'll know more about both of those by the end of the night tonight. Let's face it, we live in a toxic world. Last year, there's 7 billion pounds of chemicals dumped into the environment. That's probably an underestimate. We talk about mercury. 6 million pounds of mercury is dumped into the environment. And 80,000 known toxic chemicals. Many we just don't know. And the effects of toxins are cumulative, meaning they build up in your body. If you can't get rid of them, they will build up. And you will start tipping and reaching that tipping point where you have a health issue. So it is a toxic world we live in. Detoxification is getting rid of toxins, transferring those toxins into a form that you can eliminate them, because they accumulate if you don't detoxify. Most of that detoxification is performed in the liver, somewhat in the intestines and kidneys. The kidneys more of an excretion, getting rid of toxins via the urine. The intestines more in preventing absorption of toxins. But the real workhorse is the liver. You have to have the right nutrients. You got to have the right vitamins and minerals for your liver to do its job. And some of us are just not good detoxifiers. We've got bad genes. You've all known people, I presume you have, who are great detoxifiers. Here's what they are. They're 92, they're sharp as a tack. They have 3 eggs, bacon for breakfast every morning. They drink a 5th of Jack Daniels and smoke a pack of cigarettes. Now, I'm serious. These people are great detoxifiers. Now, most of us know we can't do that. But I know I had people in my family like that, and an uncle like that. That's how he lived his life. 96, he just dropped dead. Died never sick. Didn't have cancer, didn't have heart disease. He was a great detoxifier. And one of the great tenets that is probably becoming more mainstream is that genes, your genetic predisposition, does not make you sick. Genes are part of what makes you potentially get ill. But you have to have the genetic predisposition plus some environmental exposure. The two coupled together allow a disease to express. So we can't do much about changing our genes, our DNA, but we can control our environment to some extent. We can make better choices. And the environment means everything that we do to our bodies every day. The foods we eat, the water we drink, or the fluids we drink, the lotions we put on our skin. Get back to that lotion thing. Whether we dry clean our clothes or not. The supplements we choose to take or not take. Whether we exercise or not. Maybe how we control our stress. All of these things are environmental controllable factors that you have some say in. So the analogy I use is that genes may load the gun, but the environment pulls the trigger. So if you don't pull the trigger, you're not going to kill anybody with your gun. So you may have a loaded gun, you may have a genetic predisposition, but unless you pull the trigger, no one gets hurt. Because toxicity causes problems like this. What do we call it in a child? We call it ADD or ADHD. Or maybe we call it autism. Or maybe in an adult we call it dementia, Parkinson's disease, depression, schizophrenia. Your muscles hurt, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, insomnia, memory issues, or maybe cancer. So toxicity gets called a lot of different things. So what can you do? You can begin to make better choices. You can avoid foods that are high in fat, additives, and preservatives. Begin to understand what organic means, the differences in different types of organic foods. Make choices. Drink plenty of water, especially filtered water. We'll maybe talk at the end a little bit more about water. Try to breathe clean air. It's hard to do all the time, but you can do things about it where you work. You can do things about it when you're home. You can get HEPA filters. I have one in my bedroom. I run it 24/7. And you can choose what you put on your body. You can choose if you do dry clean your clothes, you should always take those clothes out of the dry cleaner. Those plastic covers, they're just toxic as all get out. And I like my shirts dry cleaned. I like the way they look, so I dry clean my shirts. But what I do is I have a rack in my garage, and when I get home, I put them all on my rack, and I leave them for at least a day or two before I wear them outside in the garage, just to ventilate. And now my dry cleaner has the option of using a bag, just a cloth bag instead of a plastic for my picked up clothing. So I exercise that option. So there are things you can do. Lotion, we talked about that. And I tell people, and this is not tongue in cheek, I say if you won't put it in your mouth, don't put it on your skin. Because 75% of what you put in your skin goes to your liver. And if you're not a good detoxifier, you've just put more stress on that organ. So you can make choices. Chemicals in the home, fertilizer, chemicals you're using around the house, and cleaning. I mean, all these solvents, all these petrochemicals are additive. You know, one of the highest states of cancer is my home state. I grew up in the Midwest in Iowa. Is Iowa. Why? I mean, it's a toxic place. What do? They grow stuff. All kinds of chemicals in the soil, pesticides, herbicides. So those things get in the water, the groundwater. They get in the air, aerosolized. They build up. People get this stuff. 2 most toxic food additives, high fructose corn syrup and trans fats. You need to learn about them. This is public enemy number one, I think. High fructose corn syrup was not really known until 1980. The average person in this country consumes 66 pounds per year of high fructose corn syrup. It causes inflammation, so your brain's going to be on fire. It is tough to avoid. You've got to learn to prepare your food. Go to the farmer's market. Shop around the outside of the store. Here's the trick. If you go to the supermarket, you make one pass outside. Never go on the inside aisles. Everything you need to eat is on the outside. All the grocery stores are the same. You come into the right, it's the fruits and vegetables. Make the corner. You got the meats. And then you got to skip the potato chips. You can't skip those, and go on out. In all of our lifetimes, we'll begin to understand that sugar, especially high fructose corn syrup, is really a health problem. The rise in childhood obesity can date it back to the 1980s. The rise in autism, ADHD started in 1980. If you look at the amount consumed in our kids from 1980 on, and look at the incidence of diabetes, autism, ADHD, they're completely identical lines. They just mimic each other. It's almost scary. Trans fats, processed foods, fried foods, margarine. Margarine's poison. If you use margarine, I don't know what to tell you. You just can't use it. And I went through this with my in-laws. They grew up on margarine. And even when I was in college, listen, that stuff is not good for you. Just buy some butter. Have the butter. You got to have nutrients to detoxify. Zinc, pantothenic acid, B5, probiotics, vitamins, amino acids. So you got to have the right nutrients. We package them together in something called AdvaClear and UltraClear, but there are a lot of products out there. You got to have enough of those. All right, step 3 is, as you could probably imagine, you got to learn, what are you putting into your bodies? We abuse our bodies over and over again. Have to learn to take nutrition seriously. You are what you eat. Food does matter. And we've got a great DVD, if you ever want to scare yourself, it's called Food Matters. Take it or get on their website, foodmatters.com. It will it'll shake you up. When you see how food is processed in this country and what we eat, it's scary. Take nutrition seriously. You watch that video and believe me, you will eat different because it's scary to see what goes on behind the scenes. And in my world, a lot of chronic disease like fibromyalgia, lupus, cancer, heart disease, toxicity, fatigue, and depression. Nutrition is the foundation of what we need to change to improve cellular health. And I have patients that I discharge from the practice every week that say, listen, I will not change. I had a guy the other day, he goes, I'm going down to Big John's, I'm going to get my Philly steak and cheese sandwich. I said, man, you can't do that. Get a salad, go to Panera. No, I got to have my Philly steak and cheese sandwich. I don't know what to do. I can't help you. Some of you have seen this as some different diet plans. People say, okay, Dr. Wycoff, what should I eat? I'm going to tell you in a minute. These are different diets. We've got the portfolio diet, the Mediterranean diet. I really like this one. Vegetarian diet, all right. Okinawa diet, and up here the standard American diet. And if you notice the acronyms, SAD, sad. It's sad what we eat. Well, let's see what other people eat. This is the Melander family in Germany. Mom and dad, a couple good-looking boys, spent $500 and change. Got a lot of stuff in bottles, a lot of fruits and vegetables, some stuff in plastic containers. The Italy family, or the Manzo family of Italy, spent $260. Got 3 good-looking kids, 3 little boys, a lot of healthy stuff, a little bit soda pop, Frosted Flakes, but maybe some stuff there. A little closer to the good old USA, Mexico. You notice the change of the shape of the boys? Look how they're different. Look at these 3. Look at these 3. Look at even this one. Not quite, he's just a little one. But look at these 2. Well, I know. I mean, it goes through the generation. But the point I'm making, closer to the USA, we're changing. The body shape's changing. A lot of Diet Coke or Coca-Cola, cornflakes, some stuff here. A lot of high fructose corn syrup. Now, look at the shapes of these people. No high fructose corn syrup here with the Ahmed family in Cairo. Not much in a bottle or a can. Not much there either. The Ahmed family of Tingo spent 31 bucks and change. Pretty elemental stuff. The Namge family spent a little less, $5. Again, different body shape, different health issues. And the Abu Bakr family in Chad for $1.23, family of 246, whole different set of health issues to worry about. They're not worried about fibromyalgia and toxicity and ADD. You know, they're trying to get by, trying to live. This is what they would eat in a week. Back in the USA, the Rivas family. Don't want to beat up on the Rivas family. They might be like a lot of you. This is what they ate in a week. A couple box pizzas, some Burger King, all the meat in a plastic wrap, potato chips. There's some beer and Diet Coke and stuff in bottles. There's some grapes. There's a tomato, I think. You know, really, I mean, this is what they ate in a week. How do you ever expect that to get the nutrition that they need for these guys to be optimally healthy? They can't. So they're not going to perform as well as school. They're not going to do as well as work. They're setting the stage for problems with detoxification, which will lead in later life to things like osteoporosis, dementia, cancer, fibromyalgia. The stage is set. All we got to do is let the play begin. You are what you eat. You need the nutrients to make healthy hormones. Remember, step one, hormones. Got to have healthy hormones. It's as simple as what you want, what you need. A lot of empty calories in the food we eat, a lot of soda, baked goods, candy, desserts, a lot of processed food, not a lot of nutritional value in those foods. Now, I know they're convenient. I know that you like how they taste. And I'll share with you what I think the demon of the world is.